Guys, great to see you and welcome back to part 2 of Guitar in the Style of Lightnin Hopkins. And I'd just like to say before we get started that I hope you are enjoying some of the ideas that we shared in part 1 of this lesson, whereby we took a look at a shuffle with a little lick at the front of it. Yeah, this kind of idea. Won't go into all of that because we've already covered it, right? And if you haven't seen that, I'll pop a link down below because it's important you watch that prior to continuing on with this lesson. So, like I say, deceptively sounds simple, but in practice, much more of a challenge. So what are the things we need to think about when we're playing in the style of Lightnin Hopkins? Timing, primarily, execution, arrangement, and just counting. It's all those little subtle things coming together to form a bigger picture. And, in fact, most blues, you can pretty much predict where the changes are going to fall. But that's not the case with Lightnin Hopkins. He plays the changes when the mood takes him. So when you're expecting to hear that 4 chord, he may not play it. And when you're expecting to hear the 5 chord, he may not play that. In fact, he may just play the 1 chord for a whole verse, which sounds odd. And you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, shouldn't you have gone to the 4 chord and the 5 chord? That's the way he operates. And that's why if you're looking to play any of his songs, you're going to need to write down and think about what it is that he's doing, because it's not something you can guess like you can with, some other blues stuff, right? It's very, very important to realise that. And this is why I encourage people to try and sing a little bit, because that's a great way of almost subconsciously telling you whereabout within an arrangement you are. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Anyways, we're going to build upon what we learned in part 1 today. We're going to carry on with some more of Lightnin's techniques that we can add to what we've learned, so we're in a position to be able to play a blues in the style of Lightnin. Now don't forget, I have already done a lesson on Mojo Hand, and that's a great one to get down. If you haven't seen that, I'll also pop a link down below to that as well. So like I say, we learned to play this shuffle in part 1 with the little lick in front of it. And what we're going to do today is take a look at how to play a verse like Lightnin Hopkins, and then we're going to play an instrumental section. And the instrumental section echoes what we did in part 1. It's exactly the same, apart from the fact that in part 1, when we get to the B7, we were playing. So when we got to the B7, we drop back into the lick, right? Only when we're doing this instrumental section, just to mix it up and give it a little bit of flavour, we're going to play a Lightnin inspired turnaround, okay? So that's something we'll take a look at towards the end of the lesson. Now, like I say, he had this habit of doing things that you wouldn't expect. So when he comes to the verse, he may play this type of idea. Doesn't play the A. So he's just hanging out on the E, right? So as you can hear, you'd have no idea when he's going to change unless you have some insight into what the song is, or you're counting. All right, so it's important to realize that in a sense, because when you just play a 1 chord without any of the changes, it can be quite confusing as to when you should make that change. Okay, so what we're going to do is at the end of the lesson, I'm going to run through all 3 sections, I should say, of what we've covered, and then you'll have a little bit more insight into where the changes fall. So that's a verse essentially. He's just literally playing the riff with the shuffle. He's not changing to a 4 chord or a 5 chord. So not too difficult. The only thing you need to know is when to change out of that when the instrumental section comes along. So now let me play you the instrumental section, which, if you remember, I was just saying sounds very, very similar to the intro that we learnt in part 1, except for when we come to the B7, we're going to put in a turnaround. Now I'm going to play this slowly so you have a better chance of hearing what's happening. It's also vitally important to count, because now what he does, instead of playing the riff, he drops that in favour of putting in some upstrokes. So he plays 1, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, up, 2. And see, when he goes to the A, he doesn't do it after a 4, he does it after 2 beats. And these are all those little subtleties that really, you know, unless you've got a handle on it, it's going to be easy to make a mistake in a sense. So let's look at that again. He plays 4 beats, up, up, and when he goes to the A, it's 2. Let's listen one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, change, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3. Now we come to the B7, and rather than doing what we learned in part 1, we're going to go. Okay, so what's happening there? Well, it's just one of those kind of typical turnarounds. So we're going to start out, we're going to be sliding from this 2nd position to the 3rd position. So the fingers won't change what strings they're on. Index finger's 2nd string, middle finger's 3rd string. We're playing in the bass, we've got the solid thumb, and we're going. I'll tab that out for you. I'm not going to do too much tabs because I do not want you to be distracted. I want you to feel this kind of thing. And a lot of it is self-explanatory, right? So we're going. Okay, so we're doing that position, like I said, sliding from 2 to 3. Then what we're doing is we're hitting this 3rd string, 4th fret, going from 4 to 2 and off. So it's 4, 2, off, jump up onto the 4th string, 2. So that's. Okay, so to finish it off, we're going. And all we're doing there is middle finger, 3rd string, 4th fret. And we're just playing the 1st and the 3rd strings. So we're going 4th fret, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, and then to finish it off we're playing. Okay, so you got. So that's all on the 4th string. 2, 1, open into a B7, and hit the 3rd, 4th, and 5th strings. So we have. That is the ending section, if you like, okay, and that's how it differs from the intro. Okay, so to give you a real good idea as to each of the parts back to back, that's what I'm going to play for you now, and I'm going to play it nice and slowly so you can get a feel for each of those parts, and then you can work on combining them to come up with like a Lightnin inspired 12-bar blues. So we've got. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea. I don't want to kind of be too rigid about the structure of this because we're just really trying to convey ideas, all right? So don't get too caught up in that. Just remember some of the things that we've talked about which make his style so distinctive. And it's not predictable. I think that's one of the takeaways from this. So I hope that you found this helpful, and please do, if you have any questions, post those down below. I'll be only too happy to help you out with any of that kind of stuff. But this will take your blues to a different kind of place and give you a different understanding as to some of the ways in which we can play it so it's not so predictable. So like I say, I hope you've enjoyed this one. I look forward to seeing you soon with another one. In the meantime, you take care.